Ideally, we don't do standardized testing in a Montessori environment. If we do, it can be a helpful tool. We can gain some information from a standardized test score sheet, especially if something is a lot lower than we would have anticipated or a lot higher. Overall, standardized tests, when I had to do them in my own practice with children, tended to reinforce what I already knew about the children and where they were. So if we have them, we can use them as a tool, not the end all. They can be helpful in guiding our practice with the children. But ideally, we don't need to do those because we have a variety of assessments we're doing on a moment-to-moment basis with the children in our classrooms. So how do we know they're learning what they need to know, and how are we assessing that? Well, we have this vast sort of content that we can offer to them. Remember, we're trying to sow as many seeds as possible and build a really broad, well-rounded body of knowledge that they have gotten excited about and worked within in all the subject areas that we work in our Montessori elementary environments. We do what Montessori called a 3-period lesson, where we introduce information. So we tell them what something is, or we start them exploring in that. And then we ask them to apply that to a certain extent. So in the second period of the lesson, we're going to say, tell me about this, or point to that, point to the table, or point, whatever knowledge we've tried to give them, we're going to get them to use it or apply it. And then finally, at a certain point, we're going to ask them to tell us about it. What is this? Define the relationship between parallel lines. We're going to ask them to give us that information back. This happens all the time in a Montessori environment, that children are acquiring that knowledge. We give them some exposure to it. They work with it, they practice it, and then we ask them if they've got it. And we generally do that before we move on to the next lesson in a series of lessons about a particular concept. So in a certain sense, Montessori children are tested all day long, because prior to the next lesson, we're going to do a quick test. Do you have the knowledge you need to move forward? And if you don't have it, we're going to go back and do some more practice on that. That's how we function. So that's one of the ways assessment happens in a Montessori environment. And the nice thing about this is that in a Montessori environment, the children move forward when they have the knowledge they need, when they have understanding, not simply when the curriculum dictates that they should. And so, I live in a county where the county curriculum is very strict and rigid in certain subject areas, and every teacher and every child in one subject area needs to be on the same page of the curriculum on the same day, entirely countywide. There's no ability to help children who need more time on a subject, or children who could breeze through it faster. The curriculum dictates the pace. We don't have that issue in a Montessori classroom. Another big tool that Montessori guides use to assess is observation. We spend a lot of time training ourselves to be very keen scientific observers. So we're watching carefully how children are working, how their characteristics are showing up in the classroom, where their interests are, where they are struggling. We do scientific observation of the children every day, where we're objectively writing down what we see and using that to guide our planning with children. So our observation is what is going to tell us a child needs more support in one area or is ready to move, more quickly in another. And that's how we can be very responsive to individual needs, but also have a clear assessment of where children are. Other ways we help to assess what children are doing and what knowledge they have is through their work journals, where they track what they've been doing in a given day, and the individual meetings we have with them every week. Those are two ways that we work collaboratively with the children to sort of assess and evaluate where they are and what they need. So we aren't doing the assessment alone. We also are involving the children in their own self-assessment, their own evaluation of their work and what they've gotten done and what they need more support in. And that's a really powerful component of how we approach learning with the children. The learning is happening in their heads. I cannot get in there, but I can work collaboratively with them to help them be working to achieve certain knowledge or certain skills. And of course, we are aware of society's expectations. So we know what the state standards are, and we bring those state standards to the children's awareness as well. Here's what society expects you to know. That's your minimum responsibility. You have to know it because you live in this society. So how are we going to tackle this? So we will use that as part of our overall assessment, making sure children have achieved those various benchmarks as dictated by the state in which they live. But also part of what helps us know children are learning is that we have this uninterrupted work cycle, that we have this culture of work in the classroom, that we are really implementing everything we know to be developmentally appropriate for elementary children. All of that is going to really build in them being able to acquire all the skills that they need. So certainly we're watching for this, and we have our assessments throughout, but also we are giving a lot of that freedom and responsibility to the children so that they can take it on and learn everything about the universe that they're so excited to learn.